Is pain all in your head? Well, not exactly, but your brain does play a much bigger role than you might think. Today, we're diving into a really interesting link between pain and personality. Could being a perfectionist, a people pleaser, or a high achiever actually make you more prone to pain? And if so, what can you do about it? Joining us is Gemma McFall, who's a chronic pain recovery coach. And later hearing from Andy Fieldhouse, a former chronic pain sufferer who's now back to running pain-free. So if you've ever struggled or know someone who has, stay with us. And of course, send in your questions. Gemma, why are you so passionate about pain? Where did this start for you? And why have you dedicated your life's work to helping people in this space in particular?
Oh, thanks for having me, Helen. So it started because I had back pain for 10 years. When I was in the corporate world, the pain progressively got worse over the course of 10 years. I was close to surgery and I stumbled upon the science behind pain and some of the latest research. And it was at that point I realized what a huge part the brain plays in the feeling of pain that we have. I threw myself into re-educating, and within 3 months, I'd got rid of 10 years of back pain.
Wow. Okay, I need you. Everyone listening needs this. What do you think then are some of the biggest misconceptions about pain?
Most people believe that pain is structural. It's what we see on an MRI scan, and therefore that must be what's causing the pain. But we know all pain is created in the brain. And I mean, it might help if I explain what pain is. Pain is something we need. It's trying to tell us something. It's trying to protect us. But our brain can't tell the difference between physical pain, like touching a hot pan, or emotional pain, like, for example, having visitors stay with us in Dubai.
I currently do. Maybe that's why my back is hurting.
This is a good example of emotional pain. And the reason is that the same part of the brain is used to process physical and emotional pain. So the brain's trying to protect us and will give us any symptom that it thinks will help us to distract ourselves from that emotional situation, or to do anything to protect us.
You've got me thinking now, because as I said, I woke up with back pain this morning. I don't normally get it. My parents arrived 3 days ago. So maybe my body's going, Helen, if you could just be distracted by the middle of your right side rather than thinking about maybe a conversation you should be having with your mum right now. Does that, I mean, are we onto something on here?
We absolutely are onto something here. And pain will go where you most likely will believe it to be true. So if you have an office job, you will believe if I sit with bad posture, I will get back pain. A migraine, for example, is a great way to get you away from the in-laws, because you can go to bed, lie down, and not have to justify to anybody why you need to be on your own.
But surely there are circumstances where there is legitimate pain in the body, like if you break your leg, for example.
Of course,
Okay.
yeah. We're talking today literally about chronic pain. So acute pain, that's a really good example. It's a signal that's saying, don't lean on this leg because you need to rest and recover because you've just twisted your ankle or whatever.
So what's happening in the brain? You know, when we think about that, you're saying there it's there to protect you, and it's sending us messages that, you know, maybe you need some time away from a certain situation, or maybe you don't want to be going to work today for something that you're not addressing. What is pain in the brain? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. So the brain detects a threat. It cannot tell the difference if it's physical or emotional, and then it gives you a symptom. And at that moment, when you get the symptom, a neural pathway is established in your brain that says, when I feel like this, I will get this this physical response. Okay. You feel it once, you feel it twice, and then it becomes a pattern. And it becomes a deeply ingrained pattern that's hard to...
It's an easiest route for your brain to take.
Exactly. And the migraine maybe protected you and got you away. So your brain goes, oh, this is good. Migraine works. I'll give her a migraine again. And over the course of weeks, months, years, even a lifetime, the pain gets worse and worse and worse, regardless of what medical interventions you have, because, of course, medical intervention looks at the physical body, what's on the MRI scan, and doesn't take into consideration the emotional component.
Gemma McFall with us today. If you've got any questions, you can reach out, and you don't have to put your name on it if you would rather not. I want to come back to this point about personality types and traits, perfectionism, people pleasing, being a high achiever. How can that contribute to chronic pain, Gemma?
Well, there's two main things that are contributing to whether our brain feels like it's in threat. One is trauma from the past, and that's a whole separate subject, which we may do on another day.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side is the personality you have. So if you're the sort of person that overthinks absolutely everything, when you get an injury, whatever that injury might be, or pain, sometimes out of the blue, you think about it, you panic about it, and you keep panicking about it. And then you think, but what if I can't go to work? And then what if I lose my job? And very quickly you spiral. And as you're doing that, your brain is getting more fear, which sends more pain signal to your body.
Can I ask then, the same person on 2 different days and the same thing happens to them, could they experience pain in a different way depending on other factors like, I don't know, being tired, for example, or being hungry or feeling lonely or disconnected? Can it be circumstantial as well?
Yes, 100%. I've had a client in the past that got back pain on the way to work and no back pain in the car on the way home from work, for example.
Right. Interesting.
Yep.
So with things like tiredness, we know that that can lead to irritability in our personality, in our mood, but can it lead to irritability in the body as well?
Yeah, actually, tiredness and insomnia is one of the first things I tend to deal with clients, because when we feel tired, we feel like we're in fight or flight. There's automatically a threat there.
You're heightened.
So you're heightened. So everything is worse, including chronic pain.
Gemma McFall with us today. If you've got any questions, you can reach out. We are going to be hearing next from Andy, who has had his own experiences around chronic pain. And I'm curious if he feels like his personality might have played a role in that as well. You can reach out as ever on the usual numbers 4001 on the app or the WhatsApp too, talking about pain reprocessing. So if you are struggling or someone in your life that feels like this would be really beneficial, some free advice coming your way. Millions upon millions of people around the world suffer from chronic pain and often feel trapped in this cycle of endless treatments and frustrations. But what if the key to recovery isn't just treating the body, but actually retraining the brain? Today we're exploring some research on how our brains can keep pain signals switched on, even when there perhaps is no physical injury. Also talking about why certain personality types might be more vulnerable to chronic pain. Gemma McFall is with us today, a specialist in chronic pain recovery. And Andy Fieldhouse in the studio. Tell us a little bit about his personal journey from persistent knee pain to, well, Andy, you skipped into the studio today and I believe you're running. It's lovely to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about your experience with pain and how it did affect your daily life?
Sure, yeah. I was a very active, fit younger man, played a lot of rugby, used to love running. It was very good for my physical health, but also my mental health. Not a marathon runner, but a regular runner, a few miles, 2 or 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. Moved to the UAE, life got busy, got older, and I just put it down to age and wear and tear from the rugby that I was getting knee pain.
Caught up with you.
Yeah, and basically every time I ran, I would get pain the next day. It wouldn't hurt to run, but the next day, and it would be quite excruciating for 2 or 3 weeks in that knee. And you can live your normal life, but it would be a distraction. Mm-hmm. And I kind of, I went to the doctor and they referred me to physios, and I did some physio, and then they did a scan and they did an MRI. And,
what did the scans and MRI
They said,
find?
oh yeah, there is a visible small meniscus tear in your right knee. Okay, fine. So what are the options? Well, we should try physio first. Let's try physio. After that, if that doesn't work, you have the option of surgery. And they said, well, what is it that you want to try and do with your life? And I think I was like late 40s at the time, and I said, well, I'd like to run again. And they said, well, do you really have to? Do you want to? Or do you want to play golf when you're 70 or 80? And we could do surgery. We could go in. We could perhaps clear it up or remove the meniscus. And then, what happens when you're 70? And I was like, oh, really? What do I need to do here? Can I get exercise elsewhere doing, say, rowing machine or cycling or something, walking, without the impact of running? Well, I could. So I kind of resigned myself that I would never run again or have surgery. And so I chose, look, I'm just never going to run again. And that's where I was.
So tell us a little bit about working with Gemma next to us. What kind of mindset shift did you have, and what did actually that work look like?
I met Gemma networking at a networking event, and just got talking about what she does.
Did she come over because you were limping?
No.
This man needs a conversation.
But of course, when she said I'm a pain reprocessing coach, I said, "Oh, wow, I get knee pain," and I think that's how it often happens with Gemma. And the breakthrough was when she said, "I'm really curious about why you don't get pain when you are actually doing it. Why do you get the pain the next day?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know."
And no one's ever asked me that before.
No. And then that's what led me down to actually working with her because of that curiosity, and then getting her to explain, well, here's what I do and this is what happens.
So what do you do, Gemma? Can you kind of demystify it a little bit for us?
Yeah, so pain reprocessing therapy is designed to figure out the root cause of the pain, where it's coming from, and to teach people the science behind pain. That in itself lowers the fear signal, but also to literally reduce the fear in the brain, which then reduces the pain, and in almost all cases eliminates the pain completely. And it's pretty quick, but if you're asking what happens in an actual session, it depends on the client, right? I have 4 Ps that I run people through: pain, understanding the science of pain; personality, how their personality's leading into more pain; past, their childhood; and then practical stuff they can do to reduce the pain signal when it's happening, to remove the fear.
So how did it work out for you then, Andy?
I think a lot of it is just this awareness piece of and you have to be open-minded. If you are resistant to it, then I don't think it would work. You have to believe that this kind of stuff can work. And I know some people don't. Some people will want to go down the medical-only route, and that's fine. And obviously you have to eliminate, like you said earlier, that if you've broken your leg, you've got broken bones. That's obvious. That's a medical issue. But with this kind of concept of chronic pain that just shows up, why? I think for me, there were a couple of real eye-opening things. One was the connection in your past of looking at. Gemma gets you to kind of think about, when have you experienced pain throughout your life? I had back pain when I was younger, etc. And what happened in your life alongside those incidents? And I was like, my goodness, they happened at times when I was stressed or worried.
There were parallels.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, this stuff actually works.
What about the personality P?
Yeah, as I work with teams, and I'm very familiar with the concept of different personalities and the impacts they have, but I had never connected it with pain, physical pain. I'm somebody who is, my kind of strengths are things like relator and empathy and communicator, and for me, I think a lot of it made sense where I'm constantly thinking about how other people feel and also about how they feel about me. And so my life is driven by that kind of low-level thrum of concern and stress around how's everyone feeling, and that's debilitating over time.
It takes it out of you.
Yeah, but then relating that onto the kind of the physical symptoms, and I find myself sometimes with a jaw clenched or shoulders hunched, and I'm now working consciously to notice that and just relax and do have methods that I use just generally with my body, but that made a lot of sense with how that would manifest as a particular knee pain.
I think that's really interesting, Gemma, this idea of almost rationalizing what's happened, because so much comes from this idea of, I don't know what it is, so I'm going to be heightened, and I don't know where this threat is coming from, so that's going to compound what I'm experiencing. Can I ask then, generally, how many sessions, how much time do you start to see results? And someone, as we said, who needs a bit of a kind of a Dr. House situation to start kind of, drawing lines between the dots, rather than it being, as we said, a kind of an injury as such. Could it be, is it an hour? Are we looking at 10 hours? Do you work with people over a year? What does that look like?
My whole thing is to get people up and running as fast as possible, literally, in Andy's case. 6 to 8 sessions, an hour a time. If we look at the pain reprocessing therapy research that's been done, they did 4 weeks, twice a week for 4 weeks. And at the end of that, the participants reported 68% of them had no back pain. And 98% said they'd had a massive reduction in pain. This was a huge study that was done to show the effectiveness of it. But the point is, it can be really quick. I've done one session with people before where they've had no pain afterwards. But that's a unicorn.
Andy, how are you feeling now, sir?
How am I feeling today?
In your knees.
I don't get pain at all. It's completely gone.
Wow.
I have no knee pain. I run 6 kilometers without stopping.
And the next day?
No, nothing. Wow. I started running again in January. I started working with Gemma last year, and then I think I had to build the confidence to actually give it a go. And then I thought, new year,
Well, I think for me, I've had knee pain in the past as well. And sometimes it's the fear of pain that it's really held me back. And I'm so used to kind of moving and walking. And I can't run a bath. But, this idea of I want to protect myself from pain.
Yeah.
So you're immediately in this mode before you've even put your trainers on.
Completely.
So now you're starting to trust yourself and your body a bit more.
Yeah, and it is that confidence, like the muscle memory kind of idea. And I've had moments where it started coming back, and I'd call Gemma and she'd explain again. Oh yeah, that's right, and work out techniques that work for me. Like I'd be running and I'd start to feel the pain, and then it's so easy to go into that fear position, and that's the neural pathway that you're trying to interrupt. And so I'd start, for example, I would start concentrating on my left knee, and that's actually what what it feels like. And then Gemma said, no, take it away from the whole area of your knee and think about your shoulder or your arm, and then completely focus the mind away from the area. So that she has techniques and tips like that.
Wow. Okay. Right. I mean, you said you can. We've got some headlines. We'll have a little chat off air, Gemma. Andy, thank you so much for coming in. I think it's so valuable to be hearing about someone who's really been able to turn it around. So thank you.
My pleasure.
And we might catch you with you later when we talk about all things personality as well.
Yeah.
Fascinating one. It's afternoons with me, Helen Farmer. Any questions relating to chronic pain, do get in touch. We're going to keep Gemma McFall with us today. If you want her details, just send me the word pain, and I will find a way of connecting you guys. We're going to talk a little bit more about emotions and stress, about simple ways that you can perhaps start changing your response to pain, just as Andy was talking about there. And can you actually unlearn chronic pain? So if you need advice, text lines are open 4001 if you want Gemma's details. Just actually, no, don't send me the word pain. That's negative. Send me the word heal. That's probably a bit more upbeat. What if the way we think about pain is actually keeping us in pain? Research is showing that fear of pain can make it worse and even prolong it. But the good news is the brain can also learn how to turn it down. Today, we're unpacking that mind-body connection, the science behind persistent chronic pain, and why personality traits like overthinking, perfectionism, stress management play a massive role. We've got pain expert Gemma McFall with us today, and this sounds like you. Stay with us, and of course, send in any questions. So what are some of the big challenges you see with expats here in the UAE? Some common triggers, Gemma?
Common triggers include guilt for being away from family, especially with aging parents. This is a big one. Chronic pain tends to get us in the years of responsibility. So it's once we've got a mortgage and kids and a house, but then at the same time, we've got aging parents. So that's a really big one. There's a lot around if you've got a sole breadwinner and they are trapped. They have to have that job because if they don't have that job, the kids don't have school, you don't have a visa, you don't have anything. So this feeling of being trapped leads to back pain, migraines, and so on.
And then presumably you do have a lot of kind of people going down that pill popping route. And then that must be very difficult to kind of unpack then where the pain is coming from and where it historically has come from. How do you help people kind of unlearn chronic pain, Gemma? How does that process work?
I mean, the first part is awareness, and it's that moment. Usually I get to people once they've tried everything. They've literally, like Andy, he'd tried everything. Nothing is working. And then the penny drops and they're like, well, obviously nothing's working because it's not structural. And then when they're sort of at the bottom, they'll come to me. And then we start looking at the patterns. And this is something anyone listening can do. When the back pain strikes, the stomach, the skin rash, whatever, what is happening emotionally? Yesterday, tomorrow, next week, because usually you can start to make these emotional connections. What are you not saying that you want to say that you can't say?
Oh, so much. But that's interesting then, because what do you think are some small daily habits or shifts that could help people reduce their pain over time? What do you do yourself, or what do you advise people to do who maybe aren't in debilitating pain but really want to feel for as long as possible?
Yeah, I would focus to start with on morning routine and evening routine. If you can get the morning and the evening right, wake up in a calm state, avoid the news, WhatsApp, social media, everything for the first hour, because your brain's so susceptible. The minute that we go into fight or flight, if we wake up like that, we'll stay like that for the whole day. Same thing at night. I used to wake up to the sound of my babies crying when they were little, and that is not a good way to wake up with chronic pain. So the first thing I did was I got up an hour before the kids when they were babies.
On your own terms?
On my own terms, slowly.
Which sounds counterproductive when you think about, being tired leading to perhaps feeling pain more. But as you say, if you're doing it on your own terms, you're able to have some time to yourself, and you're starting the day in a way that you can control. And then what about a wind down? I mean, I'm guessing phones are out of the bedroom completely.
Of course, yeah.
Of course, okay.
Looking at blue light just before bed obviously affects sleep. And for people with chronic pain, sleep is usually something they're woken up from sleep with pain. But the more we worry about not sleeping, the stronger that neural pathway gets for not sleeping, and then the less likely you are to sleep. So just always focus on the fear. What can you do to feel safe when you go to bed?
Last question. What do you feel like we haven't covered in this that you feel like is a really fantastic fact about pain, or something you feel like more people need to be aware of and understand?
We absolutely can unlearn chronic pain, and I just want to shout it from everywhere. Like it's so real. And MRI scans, they will show you something. It is normal to have an abnormal MRI scan, and that is the biggest myth.
Thank you so much. I had so many people sending me the word heal, so you're clearly onto something here. Gemma McFall, an absolute pleasure to catch up with you. And thank you again to Andy, who came in, as I said, skipping in. No knee issues anymore. It's Afternoons with me, Helen Farmer, with you through until 4 o'clock today.
Weather check
with Air Arabia.